Oh yeah, there's so much about this World Cup. I think this is probably the best World Cup in our lifetime. I don't think there's one that tops it. I don't think. I mean, obviously, I was 4 years old in '98. I was 8 years old in '02, so I didn't really follow those ones. But the 2010 World Cup, uh, is so iconic for so many reasons. I will straight up say this World Cup changed soccer as we know it. It really did. And you just have to look at the Lampard disallowed goal or ignored goal or whatever you want to call that. But we'll start with what is this? What was this World Cup known for? You had um, you had an amazing finals with Spain and Netherlands. Seeing a team like Netherlands go to the final, I know they're a good team, and people always talk about them, but people don't usually have them going to a final. So when you have a team like Netherlands go to the final, I think it's almost like when Croatia did it in 18, where it was not surprising, but at the same time you're like, nice, like you want to see those teams get to the World Cup and succeed
I
because you don't
predicted
want to
them
see
to get to
Germany.
the World Cup in 2010. I predicted them to get to the final in 2010.
Well, nobody's asking you. But no, but you know what I mean? Like we always get Germany, Brazil, Argentina. Like these teams are always winning the World
The
Cup.
same, yeah, the same powerhouses again and again
So
and
when you get
again.
Netherlands in the finals and they put up a good fight against Spain, I don't think many people had them beating Spain, but I think everyone was hoping they would beat Spain. Um, I mean, to be fair, that was Spain's. Was that no? That was Spain's first World Cup, was it not?
This was the first World Cup in God knows how long where both teams hadn't won a World Cup
Yeah.
final
So
going into it.
to be fair, that was Spain's first World Cup, but Spain was always a favorite. I guess not maybe not always a favorite, but in recent years around 2010, they were a powerhouse. They were favorites in Euros. They were favorites in World Cup. Like they were always talked about. And they always had big stars, right? So even though they won their first World Cup that year, I think they were still considered the powerhouse where Netherlands weren't necessarily.
Like
Um,
that Spain, that generation of Spanish players, like it's the best international team I've ever seen in my lifetime. That
oh, for
stretch from
sure.
like 2008 to 2012, and nothing comes close to me.
No,
I will be a little bit of a bubble burst. It's not the first World Cup Spain was in. They've been in every year since '74.
well, exactly. Yeah.
But
I thought you meant final.
No, that's,
but
that's
but
what I did mean. Yeah, it was
but
their first
yeah.
final, yeah.
It is just so anyone's not like confused. We are not saying it's their first World Cup.
No,
It's
no,
their first
it was
World
their
Cup
first
final.
victory
Just so people,
as well.
yeah. But yeah,
Um,
they had never been in. The closest they ever got was quarter
Yeah.
final.
So I think that's one thing you can look at this World Cup for was an exciting new finals, right? And that's one thing. The second thing, who the fuck? No one will ever forget about those. What were they called? Fulvas? Fufuvas?
Vuvuzelas?
Yeah, those things.
The
Holy shit.
second
Those,
most annoying instrument on the
but
planet.
like the
The
fact
first
that
one
one
being
thing,
Rihanna.
the fact that one thing could be remnants of a World Cup because of a stupid fucking noise, but it's iconic. You watch any clip from that
This
World
World
Cup,
Cup's iconic for its music.
and then again, I was about to get into the music. That's another thing. Like this World Cup had so much shit, and like to me, when the North Korea versus Brazil, fucking brilliant, fucking brilliant game.
That still seems like it's some FM generated like
And
simulator or something, doesn't it?
to go on to lose 7-0 to Portugal the game afterwards is hilarious. You had South Africa topping France in the group stage after beating them in the last game. Amazing. Like, sure, South Africa didn't go on. Nobody expected them to. But to beat France and come third, massive. Absolutely massive. And then obviously as an England fan, we hate it, but that draw against the US still talks about that game to this day.
When they
It
bet
was
England 1-1.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, honestly, yeah.
That's a running joke with the Americans. They love saying stupid stuff like that with football
No,
games.
honestly, you look at America's soccer history. That is probably their biggest. Okay, maybe this isn't fair to say, but I'd say this is one of their biggest results since they beat England back in the 30s, which is considered one of the biggest upsets in soccer history.
Yeah, that's which is it's funny how like the way global powerhouses will make this shit try to work because in my opinion, North Korea being Italy, way bigger of an upset. But then they'll be like, no, we did it in the 30s. Yeah, that's because in the 30s, the threat of global war was way more important to some other countries.
The US bet England.
1950s? Oh, well, fuck.
Oh, I thought it was earlier, but either way.
They were still rebuilding after the war. The U.S. just came back and went, well, that was good. We were untouched.
It's not important. Anyway, there was also you have sorry, you also had oh my god, Italy last in the group where New Zealand came over Italy. Like those types of matchups, I don't think we ever see it. I'm not that we won't see them again. I mean, in 2026, we're gonna have a bunch of random ass teams in the World Cup because it's expanded. So we're gonna have teams that you should never really be there. And I promise, Italy will probably never miss the World Cup again because it's a stupid rule. Um, but we have so much great stuff like that, and then we could go to probably one of the biggest moments of the World Cup that people still talk about to this day: Uruguay versus Ghana. That is one of my favorite games of all time. And the one time a red card truly did help a team out. Like, what a fucking moment. And I remember at the time, and we'll discuss this. I remember at the time as a kid, I'm like, fuck you, that should have been rewarded. I was going for Ghana. A player for Sunderland was on the team at the time. I really wanted Sunderland. I really wanted Ghana to win that game. And then when they got that pen, I'm like, holy shit, they're going to do it. And let me go back a bit. This is the first World Cup. Like I said with Paul, '06 was my first memory. This is the first one I really got into, and I watched
Same.
every game. I went hardcore, and that Uruguay Ghana game was probably one of my favorite games of all time. And it just ended in such a dramatic event. And at the time, I was like, they should have rewarded their goal because he stopped it illegally. I didn't think the red card was fair. Now that I'm older, I do think they did the right call, but I think that's still a discussion. That's still something people talk about. Probably more Ghanaians. Ghanaians. I don't know what they think, or what do you guys think? Was that the right call, or should have they gave an automatic goal? Andre?
I can talk then. Okay, so
Yeah, I was just trying to think of like what the right kind of, I don't know, because like I rely heavily on in those big stages like on technology, so I think that it should have stood, because I just, without having the ability to go back and double check, I just find that they're in that moment, they're like, yeah, I'm just gonna stick with my gut, right? And we'll see over the next couple World Cups, which we'll briefly talk about, that makes a huge difference in the run of play. Huge difference.
So yeah, like kind of similar to you, Michael. Like I think I wanted Ghana to win, but I liked Uruguay as well. Like I really
never liked Suarez either, though. So when Suarez did that, I'm like, "Ah, you piece of shit."
see,
Watching him cry, walking off the field, was one of my happiest moments. Because in my mind, I'm like, Ghana's got this now. Suarez, bye bye. Uruguay, bye bye. And then that save. And honestly, now that I'm older as well, Suarez's reaction to that was one of the best things you'll see.
I was gonna say, like, I think that's the difference because I've always really liked shithousers in football. Like,
Okay.
I've always really liked guys who embrace the villain role because I think there's too much like, I don't know, this is gonna make me sound like a 60-year-old boomer or something. Like, there's always too much like, oh, respect. We gotta respect. Like, no, fuck that. I want to see some shithousing. Well, everyone's gonna love each other and do hugs and all that. Like, I love right straight up bad guys like Suarez. And also, like, I thought he was doing really good in this World Cup. He scored a loads of goals. Him and Forlan were great up front for Uruguay. I remember like the goals in that game being really good. I think it was it Montari who scored for Ghana? He scored like a great goal from outside the box. And then Forlan, like, it was almost as if like he could just put a Jabulani wherever he wanted to. It was almost like he could just run really, really fast, pick up with his hands and put it in the net. And it just looks like he kicked it. And
Forlan, sorry.
Yeah, Forlan. When it came to the moment at the end that everyone remembers, I think if you were to look anybody in the eye and ask them, would you do the same thing?
100%.
If they said no, they couldn't tell you with a straight face. They'd straight up be lying. Everybody would have done the exact same as. Would everybody have reacted the same way afterwards? Maybe not, but I've got to be honest. If my team's World Cup hopes were kept alive after that, you're goddamn right I'm going to be celebrating.
Yeah. Well, 100%. It was such a huge moment, and because
apologies to Ghanaians everywhere.
Ghana in that World Cup was the furthest African team as Ghana, I believe.
Yeah, there's been a couple of quarterfinalists from Africa, but that was that was the closest one has gotten to the semi-final. Like literally the kick of a ball.
You have to root for them because again, they're the almost always the underdogs, and you kind of want to see them go through. And while Uruguay hasn't necessarily won in a while, they have so many wins under their belt that it's just kind of like you kind of want
I
them to.
I
to
feel
go
like this
through.
was like the rebirth of Uruguay in a way because I just knew them as a team who won the World Cup like
Ages ago.
like ages ago,
Well,
and
they
like
won
I
the
knew
first ever World Cup, and then they won another.
in 1950, but like
Yeah.
I didn't know them at 2006 or anything, and like this felt like a rebirth. Like Uruguay were putting themselves
Yeah,
on the map of football again.
Another thing I want to talk about this World Cup is, in my opinion, it gave us one of, if not the best soccer game of all time with South Africa 2010 World Cup for the Xbox 360. I
Ah,
played
yeah.
Yes.
the fucking shit out of that game.
Oh,
I can't tell. I almost bought an Xbox a couple weeks ago just so I could play this game again.
Oh,
Like
so good.
fucking hell, such a good game. The details they put into it was amazing, and then you had the 2010 soundtrack playing over and over again. It was fucking beautiful.
I think
Um,
2010 was the first time where they started licensing out a bunch of tracks. So
Yeah.
the sound you could like fire it on and go do the dishes or go clean your room or something and just be
Mhm.
fucking bobbing your head
Oh,
to
yeah.
absolute bangers to them just playing. And then from there on in, every FIFA game was like a requirement. Build a good soundtrack and then just make the game. Whether or not the game's shit, like worry about the soundtrack first. We'll get to the game later.
And don't worry, we're going to talk about England because here I am now. That this is the game that literally did change soccer as we know it. It did. This game alone with Frank Lampard's goal that wasn't allowed
Oh,
literally
it was
changed
fine.
the
Didn't
game.
cross the line.
Huh?
Didn't cross the line.
Are you fuck? Oh my god! You're joking, right?
Didn't cross the line.
You're trying to wind me up, you fucking sheep shagger. This goal alone changed soccer as we know it. Because it didn't go in. Well, sorry, it went in, but it wasn't allowed. But that is what brought in goal line technology, which I 100% agree that turned into VAR. If this goal was allowed, we may not have that stuff today.
I remember, like, when you said, like, this World Cup changed football, I was a bit like, what is he talking about? But, like, I gotta be honest, I forgot about, like, goal line technology and all that. Like, that's a really,
That whole discussion
a
happened
really
because
big,
of
like,
Lampard's goal.
it was almost, it felt like almost immediately afterwards, like, it came in, right, we're bringing goal line technology in. I was
Well,
like,
it's what created the
you-
conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, you're
And
right,
that came in.
football's
That
never
came
really
in
been the same
2014.
since.
That came in
Yeah.
2014, and ever since then, the World Cup has just been the breeding and testing grounds for new technology in football.
This
Mhm.
World Cup was where England's golden generation went to die, wasn't it? Like, this was...
Oh yeah, it was. It was our last. It was our last real chance. And then 14 we had to suffer, which we'll get to. And then 2018 obviously was a totally switch of the story.
This World Cup compared to the last one. So 2006, there was only one person who scored 5 goals, and that was Klaus.
Hi.
In 2010, there were 4 people who did that. Right? It's the amount of goals being scored in this one.
Mhm.
So just skyrocketed significantly.
How many can you remember?
I mean, like Mueller's goals I remember a lot, and
Yeah.
Villa's goals I remember a lot. But then Schneider's and Forlan's not as much. But then I was also distracted a lot by Higuain, who got 4. Like there was a lot of names being made, and there was a lot of focus on Donovan too because of the American.
Oh yeah.
In him. There was a lot of like push on that in terms of the goals because like unlike 2014 where it was a lot easier to find this stuff easily online, you kind of did sort of get stuck relying on highlights and YouTube. Just go to a Wayback Machine and look at what YouTube was like in 2010.
It's unrecognizable.
And like unusable. So finding highlights, there weren't major organizations that are putting highlights up. So it sucks because it's a scenario where watching it, if you didn't live in an area or a household that was having it on, you had to go to a pub. I mean, thank fuck I'm old as dirt. So I was able to go to a pub, but then it was, it came down to, did that place actually have the rights to play it? Like, did they have the channel?
Do you guys think like Spain were almost too good in this tournament, if you know what I mean? Because the way they played football was so controlling, so dominating, and all their knockout games were 1-0 wins. Like they were like a machine, but like almost too much of a machine. Like in that final, like the Netherlands have been like 8 teams and on with a total football. Like everybody can play football perfectly. Like you think of all the great players who've like produced like Cruyff, Van Basten, Hullet, Van Persie, and they basically went into this like they just treated it as if they were like playing like League One football in England. It's like trying to like got Nigel De
Yeah,
Jong
but
trying to karate
the way I
chop
see
guys,
it, the way I
karate
see it
kick.
with
Sorry.
the way I see it with Spain is you look at their group. It wasn't a difficult group. They had Honduras, Chile, and who's the
They
other one?
lost to Switzerland.
They lost to Switzerland, right? And then even their Chile game, they won 2-1, and then they beat Honduras. I mean, who hasn't beat Honduras? But
Canada.
Yeah,
we have now. Shut your whore mouth.
We're all
But then-
suffering on that one.
But then you look at their group stage, the knockout stage, and then they started off by beating Portugal. And I think Spain were. I agree with you, Paul. They're very controlling and a very good team. But you look how they performed in a weak group. I think a lot of people were kind of saying they're thinking, oh, they're done. Especially when they come up against Portugal, but they end up winning. When they come up against Germany, they end up winning. So I agree, they were very good. Obviously, they won the World Cup, so it's hard to argue that. Um, but there was, I don't know if they were just I don't know if I agree with the too good because if you look at that group stage, it was a weak group where they did struggle.
I mean, outside the Switzerland game, like at no point in any game did I think anything was going to go wrong for them. It's just like them and that Barcelona team at the world, like they were simply unbeatable. Like besides, I guess playing Switzerland for whatever reason, I don't know what Sepp Blatter's maybe up to there, but like yeah, I can't take any away from Spain. It was the most dominating I've seen a team be at a World Cup. Well, actually, tell you what, maybe 2014 will change my mind when we talk about that there. But like, it was done in such like a regimental, we've got a job to do way. It wasn't as like there's not many enjoyable Spain games from 2010. If you think back on your favorite games from 2010, almost none of them involve Spain. Like for me
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah. I didn't find them fun to watch. I really did not find them fun to watch at all. But I mean, it's not about being fun. It's about winning. And well,
oh yeah,
fuck.
like they'll take that every day of the week, won't they?
Mhm. I think if you look at their group, not the group, sorry. You look at the finals. I think it was very good finals, and that is what I do remember. Maybe it's because it's the first finals that I really actually was invested in. Maybe that's why, but I remember that being an exciting game. So other than that, though, none of the games do stick out. I do agree with that.
I will say from me, the games were less. They weren't as they weren't what sort of sticks out in my mind. I think for me, and just as you sort of pinpoint, it's what changed football landscape. And a big one was the stadiums, like the stadiums being built and extravagant and over the top, and just even like the absolute beauty that is the main, like the final stadium, the FNB Stadium or Soccer City, whatever it was called.
Yeah. I think it's Soccer City, yeah.
Yeah,
Great
like
name.
yeah. It's like it's so funny for the FIFA tournament with football, and like there's one country going there that calls it soccer. It's just it was a scenario where it was like, wow, these are fucking cool, and these are elaborate, and these are kick ass. And then a couple other World Cups start coming around, and I'm like, oh okay.
So I want a quick question before we wrap up on 2010. Waving flag or waka waka?
Waving flag.
100% waving flag.
No,
you don't.
Yes, I
But
used to be a
waving-
waving flag guy, but now I'm a waka waka
Was
guy.
waving flag actually an official song?
It
I
was.
know I sound stupid asking that because everyone does
Oh,
connect
no,
it
it's
to the World
like-
Cup. But if you go to like their wiki page, it's not listed under their like official song.
It's Coca-Cola's official World Cup song, and Waka Waka was the official World Cup song.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay, my bad.
So I've been on Team Shakira this entire episode.
I
No,
mean-
waving flag all the day.
The official anthem was by R. Kelly, so
Yeah, let's just pretend. Let's just
we'll go with waving flag.
Let's just sweep that one.
Yeah.
uh,
Sweep that one under the rug.
either way, great World Cup.
Don't
and
want to
I
rain
think-
on that parade.
I definitely don't think Qatar's going to top that one. I don't know. The only way I don't know if there's any World Cup that could ever top 2010, and that could be nostalgia me all over it. But I'm sorry.
It's always hard to like fight your own nostalgia. Like you will never beat your own nostalgia when it comes to like looking back on things.
100%, and you're right there. But at the same time, it's like name another World Cup. I mean, again, we haven't been around that long. Maybe Andre has, but name another World Cup where you can just name off all those things I just did that everyone finds iconic about that World Cup.
Well, speaking of fighting off nostalgia,
All out of comment.
we have the 2014 World Cup, which was my choice and Paul's choice, and it really did come down specifically to nostalgia.